So Dr. Job is going to come up now and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the extension. Yay!
Okay, so we'll talk about this bilingual extension in speech language pathology. And this is a presentation that I had prepared before because this is the second time I'm talking to BLASK and now NSSLHA on the bilingual extension. So let's start with some points as to first, okay, so why prepare to be a bilingual speech language pathologist? But maybe rather than starting here with the why, I will start by describing the bilingual extension, what it is. So, which we will expand a little bit more here. But in the state of New York, in order to work with kids from bilingual backgrounds, you need to have a bilingual extension in the schools. Okay, so the bilingual extension is it's part of your TSSLD certification. That will be most of you when you go to graduate school, you're going to be getting the certification to be able to work as an SLP in the school system. Okay, and so the bilingual extension is an attachment to that certificate. So in that sense, it becomes like a teaching certification. It just makes you like a bilingual teacher, okay? But from the perspective of speech, that you would be working with the kids who require the speech and language services, okay? And it is something that I was just describing I was just telling some of you, it's something that is in effect since more like around the late 90s, the year 2000 and so, okay? It's not something that was in place all the time, okay? And it's not something that is required in all the states, because states have different requirements for certification. And so many do, but many also may not have it, okay? In New York, you need it. In New York, you need a bilingual extension to be able to provide bilingual services. Curiously, you don't need it for EI because EI, early intervention, is not considered part of the school system. So even though that would be a most important group. Oh, okay. So even though to work with little kids, you would think it's really important to provide the services in their native language or in the home language. They are actually not part of the school system, so you could actually work with EI in any language, even if you cannot communicate with the families. So anyway, so why prepare to be a bilingual speech language pathologist? Well, you do need to be knowledgeable so that you could serve these children who come from linguistic, cultural, and ethnic diverse backgrounds. And it's a lot more than just learning another language. So imagine that you took classes of any language and you became proficient in another language. Let's say you took Chinese and you now became proficient in Chinese. So you say, okay, so now I'm going to become a bilingual provider. Well, it requires a lot more, right? So with the language comes the culture, comes the social rules of how you will use the language, and you will actually need to know a lot about bilingualism and how that plays out into the language development of that client that you want to work with, that child, during periods of development and the school years. So it's not just about learning the language. You actually have to learn about bilingual language development and develop the cultural knowledge to be able to work with the families and support them. Okay. And the second point that you see here, the knowledge of the language, culture, methodologies, ethics, and so on, to be able to differentiate linguistic differences from language disorder. So it used to be, and it is still the case, that many kids become over-identified as having a language disorder. Now, a language disorder means that there is something different, neurodivergent, something different in the way of in the brains of people in terms of how they're processing language, so that they're going to have a lifelong difference in terms of how they are processing language. Okay, and so we provide a lot of we explore how the person can understand the language learning differences, how we can support them, strategies and so on that can facilitate language acquisition for a young child, and later even language acquisition and reading during the school years, so that that child is going to be competent and succeed academically, right? That's a language disorder when there is a neurodivergence there, when they are processing language in a different way than most people. That's a language disorder. That would be a language impairment. And speaking a dialect, I mean, we all speak some form of a dialect, because even standard English would be considered one dialect, the standard English. But then you have all kinds of linguistic variation in the communities that explain how people use language in many, many different ways with different influences at the phonological level, at the lexical level, at the syntactic level, okay? And that doesn't mean that there's a language disorder. But when you have somebody that goes into a school setting with this idea that only standard English is the acceptable way of speaking English, and then they meet with a Spanish kid, or with a Black kid, or with a kid that comes from Chinese background, or any type of kid that comes from a linguistic variation, they're not using grammatical morphemes in the same way as standard English. Their phonology may be different, their prosody may be a little different, even the grammar may be different, then that is a linguistic difference, part of linguistic diversity. That is not a language disorder. That's not neurodivergence. But the kids are often identified with a language disorder when they come from these very different linguistic backgrounds. And so this is part of what you would learn when you complete a bilingual extension, how to differentiate linguistic differences from language disorder. And that's very crucial, because when you diagnose somebody with a language disorder, that's really setting them away from academic success, from college. It may influence their life opportunities, and it's one of the ways in which, intergenerational poverty gets passed on and perpetuated, when you identify a whole bunch of kids that come from communities that historically in this country have been impoverished. You keep identifying them as neurodivergent, as disability, disabled, language impaired. So I think there's a very, very big ethical issue here. Okay, and those are among the why you should complete the bilingual extension. So anyway, yeah.
So most of the people before, the bilingual extension was created, and needed support from speech and language services in different languages, complex.
The so what happened is that a lot of the kids who came into the school, say from a linguistic background that was other than English, is that your question? Okay, so there in 1975, the Bilingual Education Act was passed, that stated that the children that came from a different linguistic background, different from the majority, that would be the English in the schools, So kids who came from an other than English linguistic background, they needed to be supported in their education. That's all it said, the Bilingual Education Act. It didn't say how, okay? So what happened eventually after that is that bilingual programs began to develop, but many different types of bilingual programs. Some of the programs that began to emerge in the schools after that Bilingual Education Act, that was part of the Individuals with Disabilities Act, part of IDEA. So 1975, it's part of the civil rights movement here, where, you know, and there were some families that actually sued the departments of education because their kids were not couldn't learn in the schools, okay? And so the Bilingual Education Act was so they win. These families took the case to court, to the Supreme Court, and it was ruled that the schools needed to service those children, needed to provide an education for those children. What they didn't say is how to do it. And so then you had different perspectives as to how to fix this problem. How are we going to help these children, right? So you had transition. So you had some bilingual programs that were transitional in nature, where the kids, okay, so the whole purpose here is we're just going to teach them English very quickly, and so that we can mainstream them into regular classes with English only. It wasn't really to keep the language. It was just, let's provide them, maybe we're going to invest 1 or 2 or 3 years teaching them English so that then they could be mainstream. There was the concept of ESL. We're going to pull them out. We're going to sit them in small groups, even if they come from different linguistic backgrounds, and we're going to teach them words and lots of pictures. We're going to communicate in other way. We're going to teach them English, okay, in ESL classes. And then there were the dual language programs that were developed, where the purpose was we're going to develop academic knowledge of the language, not just of the languages, of not just English, but also this other language. So you had a dual language program that maybe was Spanish and English, and the idea was this kid is going to have academic support in developing language during all their school years in both languages. So they're going to have maybe the morning in one language, the afternoon in the second language, or one day it's Spanish, the next day is English. They develop content-based knowledge in the academic, in all the disciplines. And those were the very best of the bilingual programs. Those were actually the first bilingual programs that were developed in the US, in Miami, by people who were wealthy and very well educated, and were the first ones to leave Cuba in the 1960s, after Cuba became a socialist country. So the first group of people that left were the wealthy, the highly educated, and they wanted their kids to be very, very successful. They came from a lot of privilege. And so they developed the first bilingual programs that were dual language programs, to be fully bilingual in both languages. That concept didn't take off in the rest of the United States. Mostly what took off, because we are talking about, mostly immigrants later that were underprivileged and that came here for social economic reasons. And so it was a lot of transitional programs where we don't care about that other language. They don't have to be bilingual. They just need to learn English. And so those are the transitional programs for 1 or 2 years or 3 years. So that's kind of a little bit of the history of bilingual education. Anyway, ASHA's statement on linguistic diversity, I am including here so you can look at it on your own. And then there are issues and ethics in providing cultural linguistic competent services. And so the thing is that this is important to read, because of course ASHA is going to support providing adequate services. And by adequate means that you really need to be knowledgeable, not just about the language, but the culture, and how you can support that child to progress in terms of their academic success during the school years, and identifying them as having a speech and language disorder is not going to be the solution. In fact, that can actually be very damaging to a child that doesn't have to be identified as being neurodivergent. Now, for a child that needs it, of course, it's going to be very important to identify them too. But you have to know what you're doing. And that's why it is so important to actually pursue the bilingual extension. Okay. So the BE is short for bilingual extension. So this is a certification that is provided by the state of New York that it will be attached to the Certificate of Teaching Students with Speech and Language Disabilities, the TSSLD. So in order to obtain the bilingual extension, you must first have the TSSLD, which is your teaching certification. Most graduate programs today in New York include a number of teaching courses that will allow you to finish your graduate studies with a TSSLD. And this is approximately 15 credits that is required in the state of New York. And so you will have the TSSLD when you complete these additional credits. So imagine that ASHA, the American Speech and Language and Hearing Association, it requires every graduate program to provide you with a number of courses in the different areas of speech language pathology, right? Different areas like phonology, language development, working with adult populations, neurogenic disorders, hearing. Okay, so there are different areas where every graduate program must provide you with a certain number of courses. And that's why when you actually look across all the speech and language graduate programs, there's actually a lot of similarity in terms of the classes they provide, because this is what ASHA requires. Okay, now the TSSLD is an additional number of credits required by the state of New York that are in particular to teaching, to using language to teach in the schools, to working with children who are in the school settings. Okay, and then the bilingual extension is an additional set of 15 credits that allows you to work with the kids who come from bilingual backgrounds. So you're actually now talking about adding another 15 credits, not just the teaching credits, but the teaching to bilingual kids that will allow you to get that BE. Now, most of the graduate programs provide the TSSLD, and in New York, almost every program except ours provides the bilingual extension. Okay. I cannot tell you how many times I asked the program here to do a bilingual extension, especially being in the most diverse part of New York, and it never took off. Okay, last year, in fact, we met. They said, okay, yeah, we're going to we want to move ahead with the bilingual extension. And we met, and it hasn't really taken off yet. At least, it is being considered. There are some talks about how to implement it, but it hasn't taken off, and it's actually a very easy thing to do, because it is actually in combination with in most of the colleges, the way that they have integrated the bilingual extension is by combining efforts with the bilingual ed department, with their education department. Okay, so here we have a bilingual department, and the person there, Pamela Parra, she's amazing, very, very sweet person, and she has offered to collaborate with us. So it's still on the table, and hopefully we will make it work. But like I said, it's moving very slowly. It has been on the table for a very long time. Anyway, so the education department and the bilingual department tend to supply many of these teaching courses because we're actually talking about teaching courses. And as an SLP working in the schools, you are going to be working in the classrooms or you are going to be collaborating with teachers. So it makes a lot of sense that these are that the TSSLD and the BE would be a part of the graduate education that you get. By the way, you can graduate from a graduate program in speech language pathology without a TSSLD. You know that, right? So ASHA doesn't require you for the CCs, the certificate of clinical competency, your Cs. ASHA does not require you to have the bilingual, the TSSLD or the bilingual extension. It's just that it opens up for you the school system. You know, if you don't have that, if you don't have the teaching certification to work in the school system, you're only restricting yourself to work with early intervention, with private clinics, with hospitals, okay? So, but you would not be allowed to work in the schools, not even with the preschools, because all of that requires you to TSSLD, okay? Yes, you have a question, Miriam. What do you think? Of course. If, in fact, if you want to be a bilingual SLP, the only way that you could become a bilingual SLP is by doing the BE. If you want to be a medical SLP, yes, you can work in a hospital, but you are not certified to work with bilingual education with, I'm sorry, with bilingual clients. So that brings in the ethics component. You know, the BE is providing you with the knowledge and the skills to work in another, you know, with people from other language backgrounds. So of course, in a hospital setting, you might end up working with kids from bilingual backgrounds simply because you are in a setting that is different from the schools and there isn't the requirement of the bilingual extension. But ethically, you are not doing something. That's why it's important to read the ASHA statements, because you should not violate any of the ethical standards of the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. Okay, we all abide by ASHA. You become a member of ASHA, we follow their ethics. And if you are working with bilingual clients without having the proper knowledge and training, you are in violation of the ethical code. Okay, first here.
I know for TSSLD, you have to like renew it, I think, every couple of years. Do you have to do that for the bilingual section as well?
For the TSSLD, you have to renew it as you accumulate. There is a number of years of requirement that you need to work in the school system. At some point, it will become a permanent certification. Okay, and so, but you cannot just do a stint of maybe, you know, 6 months, I'm gonna teach in the school, or I'm gonna teach a year, and then, you know, it used to be, I would have to look up, you know, what is the length of time that you require to have a permanent certification. It used to be 2 years of full-time employment working working in the schools teaching. You know, I don't know if they have changed it and maybe make it more years now. Okay, but yeah, it will, you know, it will be an attached requirement to the to the TSSLD. Yeah. Well, what the programs do, of course, is that they will try to put you, they try to integrate the BE, like a teacher's college, for example. They offer the bilingual extension to all their graduate students. And so when they are placed in their externships, of course, then they try to place the bilingual students into externships that allow them to work with bilingual students so that they get the experience. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. You can go to another program. The only challenge is if you are pursuing graduate studies in a program that does not include the bilingual extension, you are going to be on your own doing it. And so it's going to be a lot of extra work because now you're winging everything on your own. The institutional support is not there for you. You know, there's a lot of saving time, saving extra courses that you have to take when they put it as part of their program. Okay, so that maybe you don't end up taking extra classes because some classes may count dually for teaching and for teaching the bilinguals, you know, and so that you don't have to take one course of each, you know. So it actually shortens the time, you know, when you are in a program that already includes the bilingual certification. um, they have already made it part of the program and you don't have to take extra courses. If you do it on your own, then you're gonna have to take the full 15 courses that are required because, you know, now you have to cover those requirements on your own. So, and 15 credits is it's like a full semester, right? Yeah. So, yeah, so I would advise you to go to a graduate program that has it, okay? And so by the time you finish your graduate school, your graduate program, you are finishing it with the TSSLD and the bilingual extension in your pocket, rather than winging this on your own later, spending a lot of money, spending a lot of effort, you know, yeah. But you can do it on your own. And in fact, Teachers College runs the Bilingual Institute. And I teach there one of the weekends. They run the institute, the bilingual extension, by having experts in the field that come and teach on the weekends, because most of the people that take it later on are clinicians already. They are SLPs who have been working without the bilingual extension and then they want to get it. And so they sign up Teachers College to do the bilingual extension certification. And it is an effort, you know, they dedicate several months, because it's only run on the weekends, and they dedicate several months to completing this. It's excellent. It's run, by SLPs, not by teachers. Like the thing is, in most of the schools where there's the bilingual extension, those courses do come from the ed department, the education departments and the bilingual departments, and they're not SLPs. They're always going to be giving you the teaching perspective, you know, which in itself is very valuable. But we have a clinical perspective that's quite different from education. So Teachers College is the only program that provides that. Not that I'm advertising for them, but they are in fact the best program out there for bilingual extension. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So you can check when you're applying for graduate school. I strongly suggest that you check whether they offer the TSSLD and the bilingual extension, because, you know, in the long run, it's going to serve you very well. Okay, these links provide the guidelines from the state of New York in terms of how to get the BE. And so it's good to read that. Uh, Differences, of course, let's see, between the TSSLD, the BE, and the CCC. The CCC, of course, it's only by ASHA. ASHA is our national organization, and in order to be a speech language pathologist, you need to be certified by ASHA. Okay, now you can complete, you could finish your graduate studies in speech language pathology, and so you are a speech language pathologist, and you decide, I'm not going to be a member of ASHA. I'm not going to be paying all those dues, which are a lot of money, yeah. So you know, close to $400 a year, plus going to the convention, which is another $450, plus staying there. You have to stay at a hotel, you have to travel, so there's a lot of expenses, yes. But at least you have to pay those dues. Now, ASHA represents us at the national level. They advocate with passing laws that protect the profession, okay? And they provide scholarships and funding for research in our field. So ASHA does a lot of very good things for us, and it makes us strong. Without a national organization, we would not survive as a profession. We would not have an entity, an organization that defends our role, our licensure, our ability to, in fact, be remunerated and be able to have the good salaries that we enjoy as SLPs. So I think ASHA is very important. Now, you could be a speech language pathologist and not be part of ASHA and be licensed in the state. So then you would be working in the state of New York and maybe even teach in the schools. You could have your TSSLD, you could have your BE, because these are all state licenses. So the TSSLD and the BE are state licenses that allow you to work for the state. And the schools will never ask you for the Cs because that is the national, okay? But it is very important to have the Cs, but it's not a requirement to work in the state of New York. You could work with the TSSLD and the BE. So these are important differences. You know, what are your state licenses? What is your national certification? Okay. And for each of these, of course, there are fees. You have to pay fees to be licensed in the state of New York. Every 2 years, I think we renew it, and you pay for your license to keep your license. You let it expire, you have to do a lot of paperwork, so don't let it expire, these things, you know. But okay, so these are the differences, you know, what is state and what is national. Okay, okay, so bilingual extension is a certificate, is not a license. What are the difference between a certificate? A school certificate is issued by the New York State Education Department's Office of Teaching. It is valid only for service in the certification area while employed in a school district. Licenses are issued by the state of New York, the State Education Department's Office of the Professions, and it gives individuals the general authority to practice a profession in many settings. Okay, like you could be a dentist, you could be a medical doctor. It all comes, you need a specific license to work. Okay, individuals who hold a professional license but not a school certificate may only practice within the school setting under special conditions. So what does it mean? That let's say you didn't get the TSSLD, right? So you don't have, you are not, you should not be allowed. You have you finish your graduate program, but maybe you don't have the TSSLD or even your bilingual extension that would be attached to your TSSLD. Well, under special circumstances, the school system will provide you a provisional license, will give you a provisional license because they need the services of an SLP who doesn't yet have their teaching certification. So they will give you a provisional license to work in their schools, maybe for a couple of years while you get your TSSLD. I really suggest you get your TSSLD. Every once in a while, I still meet a student who says, no, I don't want the TSSLD. That's not what I want to do. And later at some point in their life, they figure, oh, really? No, I want to work in the schools. Okay, now you have to go for your TSSLD. Okay.
What's any real disadvantage to getting the TSSLD?
That you have to take extra 15 credits.
That's it.
Well, it's an extra semester. And if you add the bilingual extension, it's another extra semester. So, right?
It's not built into the program.
It is built into the programs. It is built into the programs, but you could actually enter a program and you could be very specific, tell them, no, I don't want to do the TSSLD, so I'm not gonna take those classes. But then, right, but the classes are not going to be like, there's a semester when you're gonna take all the classes, right? The classes are gonna be interspersed here and there, so that, you know, that you're not. I'm not sure if you would. I'm not sure what to tell you about whether you will finish a semester earlier or not, because since the classes are interspersed through the program, you may still end up spending the time because not all the classes are going to be available all the time. So I'm just not going to take this group of classes. You may actually end up spending the same amount of time, even though you're taking less classes, right?
I mean, even if you work in a different sector, you don't need it, it's fine.
I just say life, you know, hopefully is very long, you know, and you will have opportunities to work in many different settings. Like, you know, in the years that I have been an SLP, I have worked in schools, I have worked early intervention, I have worked hospitals, I have worked, you know, rehab settings, but schools have been a very important component of my work setting, you know. So I would strongly advise anyone to do that. Okay, what do I have here? What specific certification requirements are needed for bilingual service? Bilingual special ed service providers must hold a New York State certificate as indicated above with a bilingual education extension to that certificate. The bilingual extension attests to the fact that the holder has completed additional coursework in bilingual education in a program registered to provide these courses and has successfully demonstrated proficiency in English in the target language on the language proficiency assessments. If employed by the New York State or Buffalo, the individual must also hold a bilingual license issued by the New York State or Buffalo. This all I just copied and pasted. This is right from the state. Okay, so you do have to pass this language proficiency test or assessment, okay? Because, you know, you cannot just say I'm proficient, you know, in X language without showing that proficiency. So this will be an oral proficiency exam and a written proficiency exam that you have to pass, and the state gives you that. So there will be testing, you sign up for that, and you will take it, you know. Years ago, it used to be that you had to go to a college, to the linguistics department in or foreign languages department, and you would have to go, say, to the Spanish department and take the test in Spanish to pass the proficiency. Today, the state takes care of that in New York. Yeah. Yes, that's a really good question, because so one of the courses is actually like when you inquire in the bilingual department here, for example, they do have, let's say you want to teach literacy, you're going to teach reading, language and reading literacy, okay, in Spanish or in Mandarin or in Creole, is going to be different, right? So the materials that you're going to be using, maybe even the strategies are going to be using. And what they do here is they actually contract with somebody from the language that can teach those courses. So they can even facilitate languages that are not so easy, not easy, but not as frequent. I mean, okay, not as frequent like some languages that there is less representation in terms of people that speak the language. So Spanish, it should not be a problem because it's just, you know, such a big chunk of the population. But another language, say like Creole, for example, will have less people that that will have the background to be able to teach it. So the bilingual education department here does have people from many different languages that teach specific to the language. So you would, yeah, you would have very specific instruction.
When they test your proficiency in that language, are they looking to see that you can communicate with client, like on that kind of level, or are they looking for you to be able to like indicate like anatomical things like as well?
No. The language proficiency exam is just like a language proficiency exam. They will tell you to pick a topic and they will ask you to speak for a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes or maybe 5 minutes. I don't remember how long. Okay, but they will ask you to talk on the topic and then they will score you on your oral proficiency as you describe the topic. And then they will ask you to write an essay, to write, your ideas on specific to the topic. So that's how they test the oral and the written, you know. I don't know if they require you to read and put some reading comprehension questions. I really don't know how the test has evolved, but they give you that freedom, so you have to actually be prepared to pick a topic that you know how to talk about. I remember back in the time when I took mine, which was so long ago, right at the beginning when we were really, this was more than 20 years ago. And I picked a topic that I was not very familiar with. I said, oh, let me tell that's an interesting topic. And then within 2 minutes, I ran out of what to say on the topic because I just didn't know the topic. And the guy was like saying, like, talk, keep talking, keep talking. And I was like, I don't know what else to say about this topic. I picked the wrong topic anyway, but I passed it. But anyway, all right. So I don't know what else do I have here, but anyway, so okay, so all of this is from the state of New York. Is there more compensation for bilingual providers? Yes. No matter what people tell you, there is more compensation for being a bilingual provider. And it's fair. It's only fair that you should be compensated more because you have put in more work to become a bilingual provider. And you're giving very specialized services. So there is always more compensation, yes, and you should demand it. All right. Do you have to take a proficiency exam? Yes. And graduate programs in speech language pathology. So I don't know, do I provide you a list here? So I listed some of the programs with B certifications. If you do a Google search for this, you're going to find a lot of them. I put some of them here. At present, I think almost any program in the state of New York has a bilingual extension. At least in New York City, they do. We're about the only one that doesn't. So, any questions? Facts are facts. Yeah.
So let's say that you choose not to do it now, you want to go back to.
You can, like I said, yeah, a lot of people are taking.
Doing that, like, let's say you don't want to do like teachers college, would you recommend doing it on like a.
You can go.
Education, like that still like applies?
Yeah, you could come back here and set it up with the bilingual education department and do it later. Yeah. Yeah. You can.
It's just not a part of the program.
It's not a part of the program.
It's part of the education program, not necessarily.
The bilingual, if you approach the bilingual education department and you tell them, I'm a student in speech language pathology, I really want to do this, they will help you. I'm pretty sure they would.
Do you think that they would let us do it at the same time? Like if you were in the grad school?
I would imagine they would. Yeah, it's just that it's like I said before. If you do this on your own, you're going to end up taking more courses. If it was articulated into the program, if it was integrated, there are some courses that can be coded dually, like towards the TSSLD and towards the BE. But if you do it on your own, that means you're going to be taking all the TSSLD courses plus all the BE courses separate, and you're not going to be able to save those 2 or 3 courses. You're going to have to end up taking 2 or 3 courses separately on your own. If it was coordinated, then it would save you a lot of time and effort and money and whatever. Yeah, but you can obviously do it on your own. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So any other questions? I hope this helped. Anybody from here, from the people that are not here, that, I mean, that are virtually here, but not in your physical presence with us?
Also, then,
No other questions?
I don't see them in the chat.
I would encourage you people that participate on virtually for these meetings that you turn on your camera so that at least we could have more personal meetings, you know. It would be nice, yeah, because then we are more connected. But any questions, you know, or yes, so the CCCs you will get from your graduate program, because any graduate program in speech language pathology has to be approved by ASHA. Okay, they have to meet all the requirements of a graduate program that ASHA demands. So you will be eligible if they have been ASHA approved. That's why it's important also when you apply for graduate school, make sure that you're going to a program that has been approved by ASHA. It's accredited. If the program is not accredited by ASHA, then you are going to be on your own to make sure that you fulfilled all of the requirements by ASHA. So make sure you get into an accredited program. Okay, and you will get your C's. If the program is accredited by ASHA, you will finish your degree, your master's, with the C's because it's a program accredited by ASHA. The TSSLD is something that the program has integrated, these teaching requirements that are required to be licensed in the state of New York as a teacher of students with speech and language disabilities. And those are those 15 credits that the program has put in to their curriculum there. And so you will graduate then with the TSSLD also. And if the program integrates the bilingual extension, those other 15 credits will be also integrated, but some of those 15 credits will qualify as TSSLD. So maybe it's not even a full 15 credits that you're taking. Maybe you're actually taking a couple of classes, you know, but if you do it on your own, you're going to be taking a lot more classes. That's the difference. So if you want the BE, go to a program that already gives it.
And I know the speech pathologist is telling me that, like, let's say you want to work with a private practice, and if they have like daily contact with students, like you have to have your TSSLD.
Yes, of course, because even if you work for an agency, the agency has the contract with the Department of Education. That's how they get the numbers. So you signed up with the agency to do evaluations or to do therapy. Where are they going to get the clients? They come through the Board of Education, through the Department of Education, but you require them to have the TSSLD and B. Okay, so, all right, so thank you for inviting me. Okay, bye. All right, you can make that available to them.
Hi, everyone. It was so great hearing from Dr. Ijaba today. Thank you for coming and listening. Hi, Dr. Ijaba.
We are having another meeting on Monday, and it's going to be a Jeopardy game. We are going to have pizza, so come, and yeah, it'll be fun. It'll just be going over graduate information. If you guys have any other questions, yeah, it'll be fun.
And we'll make the recording for this meeting available on YouTube. And we'll also send out the slides that Dr. Ijaba showed today. And the meeting on Monday will be in here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so here,
340.
room 340, Queens Hall, 12:15 to 1:30. We hope to
Pizza.
see you then, eating lots and lots of pizza. All right, thanks, guys.
Yes.